an announcement to make to y'all, to the people of America.
The mothership has landed. It's the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
Gentlemen, if you'll examine your charts, please.
Let me show you a clip from my latest film where my faulty depth perception kept me from yelling cut at the proper time.
When dealing with powerful criminal elements, one can never be too well prepared.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberries.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
First thing you do is to get the psychological edge on your adversary by showing supreme confidence.
Oh, Joe Foley told me he read that in the National Enquirer, the only paper you read the truth nowadays.
I told you I am in command here, and I will give the orders, Captain.
All music is important, Dick. It's the universal language. One of our best hopes for the eventual realization of the brotherhood of man.
You get all these crazy people that come and throw this junk on stage, and, you know. I thought it was one of these rubber bats. I picked it up, it was a real bat. You know?
Was it alive?
Well, it worked till I bit the head of it, you know. The taste of bats is very salty.
Now go away or I shall taunt you a second time.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Ready to move out.
Before we start, I'd like to say something. There's no reason why you shouldn't have complete confidence in your chances to come out of this thing alive and in one piece.
From coast to coast, from border to border, from one end to the other and all points in between. The Classic Guitar Rock Podcast is on.
Yes! That's awesome!
We crank up and break down the great guitar-driven rock of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And you are invited to come along.
We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
And now, your host, Jeremy Lunnan.
Yeah, we don't know anything about that fella there. Now, who is he? Where's he coming from?
It's time for the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
So hello and welcome to the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast live stream. And my partner in crime, John, is here. And actually the leader of the show today, because he's right in the middle, is Pat McCormack. Pat,
I'm the leader?
You're the leader. Thank you for joining us. And so let me just tell you what's in store tonight. Here's why I really wanted to talk to Pat. The main reason I've talked about Ronnie Montrose on probably 10 episodes. I just love Ronnie Montrose. All permutations of Ronnie Montrose. I love Montrose. I love Gamma. So Pat mentioned that he had played with Ronnie Montrose. But then Pat's also the host of a YouTube channel called The Golden Rage of TV. So I'm going to make a very bold pronouncement, John. Between our podcast, the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast, and the Golden Rage of TV YouTube channel, that's all a Gen Xer needs right there. That is all you need. You could turn off any other form of entertainment and you'd be good. He's not buying it.
No,
not quite. What are we missing?
Cars.
Okay. Well, okay. So maybe throw in.
I want to drive a Nissan Pulsar.
Okay. Well, maybe we're missing cars, but you're almost there between classic music, good music, and the reruns you grew up with. What else is there? I mean, that's a lot of the way. So that's my plug right at the top, Pat. If you have not checked out his YouTube channel, and let me say, your YouTube channel has something mine doesn't, and that is production value. It has production elements. It's really cool. But what's really nice about it is the videos are short, right? So in just a few minutes, you get a little snapshot of I loved your episode on the Banana Split show talking about Danger Island. Every day I watch Banana Splits, and you remember you'd watch Danger Island, you'd watch the Three Musketeers. That was on Banana Splits. So it was really cool if you're into nostalgia, especially those great TV shows of the 50s and 60s and 70s that we grew up with. It's really cool. So I completely nerded out on your channel. Even if we didn't talk about Ronnie Montrose, it's worth it just to check that out. So let me just start with that.
Well, the one thing you do want to note, though, is that it does have music playlists as well.
It does. And this, I forgot this. Pat has rock guitar versions of classic theme songs. Yes. I think I watched one where you're playing Get Smart.
Yeah.
And is there a Munsters?
There is.
I think I saw the Munsters. Yeah.
Let's see if I can remember them. Let's see, there's Get Smart. There's the Alfred Hitchcock theme, which actually got me that one earned me a national award. And then I did Perry Mason, which of course you just got to. I did the second Lost in Space theme. I also did I Dream of Jeannie. And I was like, this is not going to work. Mm-hmm. How can it work for metal guitar? Because that is what it was. I mean, I called it the golden rage of TV because I was hard rock guitar versions of classic TV themes a la Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Exactly.
And so when you see these, it looks like I've actually got a band playing with me. The fact of the matter is, it's all me.
It's all you.
In my home studio. And that was quite a lot of work. And like I said, there's a couple of pre-produced videos, the Hitchcock and the Get Smart on there, and the rest are actually live performances of me, where I'll actually have a shot of me from the neck down and just the guitar.
I've seen some of those. Yeah.
And the trick is no mistakes.
You can't mess up. Yeah.
From beginning to end, no mistakes allowed. One little edit, and everybody's like, "Oh, he screwed up."
So Pat, are you working from charts, or you're just playing by ear?
By ear, mainly. And again, the funny thing about these pieces, I grew ears like a donkey when I was pulling these things together. I took the Hitchcock symphony apart and 40 guitar tracks. Played note by note each portion of what the symphonic version of the song is, and it worked. Oh man, did it work! Then I came across the theme from Kung Fu. I had no idea. I had no idea until I listened to the whole Jim Helms version that it was an entire piece of music, and it was. I'm covered in goosebumps just listening to the entire piece. And it's just like, I know this song so well that I can figure out what the melody is easily, but it's all the nuances around it, the orchestration that I'm extremely proud of. So when you hear these, what you're going to hear is guitar taken to the 10th degree of just trying to cover all the bases.
How long does it take to do something like that? Because to me, I just do not have I don't have the talent, but I don't have the attention span.
The concept of when you're having fun, there is no time.
Yeah.
The concept of when you know you're creating and you're on the right track, there is no time. So I couldn't, in all honesty, tell you how long they took. All I know is that once I knew they worked, I was so driven that I was in this very room where I'm sitting with you guys right now.
Right.
Hours and hours and hours and hours, working with my Cubase, got my Marshall half stack, and I've got all I need, And so, yes, I mean, you listen to the Hitchcock theme, you're going to be like, okay, that took that guy some time, especially since, he played the bass and programmed all the drums too. So I got to believe maybe 40 hours for that piece would be a good guess.
So Pat, did you ever research how those film scores were recorded back in the day?
Yeah, well, I mean, they had symphonies. I mean, they had crews. They had wrecking crews. They had these guys, what do they call them? Union players.
Right.
And these guys would pack a lunch, go to work, living in the valley, drive to the studio, record multiple versions of different songs, different, jingles and whatnot, get paid really good money, and then drive back home to the family.
And then the next day, do it all over again somewhere completely different.
Right. And these cats, John, these guys were reading.
Oh, yeah.
These are sight readers, which is.
I've heard a little bit about Tommy Tedesco.
Tedesco and
that
all
guy
those.
is just amazing. He's got some funny stories too. Like he had there was a setting where they had the music stands were a little high, so the conductor couldn't see over the top. So he has this Spanish guitar and he's playing his part, and then the conductor goes, "Can you have a balalaika you could play that with?" He goes, "I have one right here," and he just like leans forward so he can't see play the same part on the guitar again.
That's great. Yeah.
You need a mandolin, where's it right here? He's playing the same guitar.
He could do it all, and he was one of the sweetest guys, most down-to-earth people you'd ever want to know. And I mean, he brought me into this little room at the Musicians Institute. He had a little cassette player, and he started playing all these classic TV theme songs.
So that's where you actually met him?
I did.
Did you go to Musicians Institute?
I did.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
1987. I met Howard Roberts there, too. And, Howard
had a column, just so everyone knows, Howard had a column in Guitar Player for years. You go back and
he wrote the book.
Jazz chords and awesome.
He was phenomenal, but he also was the guy that played the Munsters theme.
Wow.
And all this time I thought it was Tommy because he did the Bonanza theme. And you're like, there's a lot similar there, but Tommy was just like, and I did this one and this one and this one. And by the time he's done, you're just like, oh my God, you've done everything.
So if I understand it correctly, there was like a whole stable of just incredibly professional musicians that these jingle writers would just call up, like Carol Kay and oh man.
Even Glenn Campbell.
Glenn Campbell was one.
Was part of the Wrecking Crew. Yeah.
Have you guys heard the name Carl Verheyen?
Yes.
He's a master, and he was my private instructor for a good year while I was at Musicians Institute. I got a side lead to him. He was just off the road with Supertramp, and we became really good friends. And he had that gig where he would pack a lunch, drive to the studio, and he took me one day. And there's Chad Wackerman. I can't even tell you the quality of the players. None of them were in the same room, and here comes the guy says, okay, I got my jingle. It's for the Diet Right commercial. And he lays it out in front of them. And it's just what we call fly poop. There's another word we used for it.
Yeah.
Because it was just so intense. And Carl looks over at me and goes, you think I'm going to play that? And the fact is he could.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. It was they wanted a vibe. They'd tell him something policey, something like Andy Summers. Boom, there it is. This guy comes in, and this is a great story. I've told it many times. This guy comes in during that session, he goes, this band over here is not giving me what I need. Can you guys do it? And they're like, this is something we need a 3-chord, just something simple jangly. And Carl goes, jung, 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 da 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 da. That's it. And the guy goes, perfect. And I don't know what the hell it was. 6 months later, on the radio, I hear, it's the right beer now. Jung, jung. It's the right beer now. Coors Light. It's the right beer now. Da, 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 da. Carl bought a house.
Wow.
From
That's
that.
Unbelievable. So I heard a funny story. I can't remember the name, but Paul Simon's getting ready to play some TV special or something, and they're going to do Sounds of Silence. And he goes up to the guitar player and is telling him how to make sure when you're playing the beginning of Sounds of Silence that this is how you do it. And the guy's like, yeah, I got it. And he keeps saying, no, you really got it. And the guy says, relax. I'm the one that played it on the record. I know how to play it.
That's interesting. I thought Paul did all those things. But.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, and I think we've touched on this before, John, especially in the 60s, all of those great songs, very rarely did they trust the actual artists to play a lot of that, so it was these studio guys. Carol, you mentioned Carol Kay, that played on hundreds of songs,
thousands.
Yeah.
So I heard a story also that they were very strongly unionized, so that like they were basically like in the common parlance, they were clock watchers, because if the session went so long, they'd get overtime.
Yep.
So, and if they wanted to be home at a certain time, so they would put pressure on the studio, the conductor, to like, we have to get this done, or you're going to move into our time and a half. And they would just they just crank these songs out. They only had so much time,
Right.
Crank them out.
The musicians are like, all right, time and a half. We're taking too long.
That's awesome. So I caught this as I was digging down a rabbit hole on YouTube last week. I was aware of it, but never was a fan. But the animated Batman cartoon that came out in the early 90s, there's a fascinating documentary about that, John. And think about this. This is for a cartoon that they would run, for kids. They used a full orchestra. I mean, Warner Brothers invested all this time in the animation that they did. It's really incredible, but a full orchestra to get music for, and a lot of these animators came from the animation mills of the 70s, making terrible cartoons, many of which Pat probably talks about on his channel, right? But a lot of these animators are coming from Hanna-Barbera, working on Super Friends and all of these things where they weren't allowed to draw guns, right? They couldn't have any guns in Super Friends or any of those. And so then when the animated Batman comes out in 92 or 93, they actually have guns. How did they get away with that? They had a full orchestra. It's a lot darker. And these animators were so stoked to come from working on Smurfs and Super Friends and whatever it was to doing this cartoon.
That was a high quality series. Batman the animated series is what you're referring to.
Exactly. And of course, Mark Hamill, the voice of Joker.
The Joker. Right.
And does a phenomenal. It was just a fascinating documentary. So I just was going to throw that out. Yeah. It's worth checking out the documentary. Since I saw the documentary, I'm trying to find the actual watch the, and it's like to rent the episodes. It's like $5 an episode, and I'm not that big a fan, but I do want to check them out. So, Pat, I have to ask you this question. Tell us about your kind of background in music. We're not going to get into Ronnie specifically yet, but I'd like to just kind of hear your background and you went to GIT.
I'm with you.
Let me ask this: while you were there, did Robin Ford ever come through? Did you ever get to meet Robin Ford?
No.
Okay.
No. Who did I see?
I love Robin Ford.
Steve Morse came through, and that was unforgettable.
Nice.
I think probably the most impressive special guest that I can recall, besides the faculty,
right,
was I just had his name. He was the drummer for the Dixie Dregs, Rod
Morgenstein. Yeah. He's great. He's awesome.
It was beyond belief. I'll never forget. Somebody asked him who his favorite drummer was, and when he said Ringo Starr, the whole place laughed.
Really?
Out loud. Yeah. We didn't get it yet. And then he said, "I'm serious," and then went behind the kit and went boom, Brett, brr, boom, boom, Brett, brr, boom, Brett, and went, and everybody went, of course. So.
You think of all the iconic songs that Ringo played on, and I'm not a drummer, but even you listen to the drum beat in Strawberry Fields, I think is the one I'm thinking of. that drum beat was that kind of in the late 80s. That drum beat was just, you heard it over and over on whether it was I'm trying to think of examples. I can't think of examples, but Ringo just had some iconic. He wasn't a soloist in like a Carmine Appice or John Bonham or something, but man, he had some really cool stuff. Really,
he was
cool
a musician.
Stuff. Absolutely,
he was a musician.
Yeah,
you know, the only thing that's the difference between drummers and musicians, right? You know, I got plenty of drummer jokes. Let's not go there.
It's mostly IQ, isn't it?
No, no.
Like what do you call a full-time or a professional drummer? Is where one that his girlfriend has a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, you can apply that guitar players, but the bass player one was a teacher has a kid come to him and he says, "Johnny, you got to learn this E string this week. Go learn the E string." Kid comes back, goes, "Great. Now here's the A string. Go learn the A string. I'll see you next week." Kid misses his next lesson and calls him and goes, "Hey, you missed your lesson. Where were you?" And the kid goes, "Oh, I had a gig." That's all it took.
That's awesome. Music critic, thanks for joining us. We're sharing your comments for the world to see.
So I'm not that great of a musician. I'm really not, but I really recognize greatness in others. Was there any player that stood out like this person can communicate on a much higher level than like anybody? Did you ever run into somebody like that?
Yes. And it was at that time while I was at Musicians Institute. And of course, Carl Verheyen, you know, just technically he was superior to just about everyone. But there was this guy named Marcus Demmel. Now, I recommend all you classic guitar rock guys to look up Marcus Demmel. It's Deml. He's from Germany, and he was there at the same time, and we became very good friends. I had never heard playing like this in my life. And what happened was we would do what we call pizza and beer jams. These were awesome because we would have jam tapes. We'd get pizza and beer and whatever else was handy. And we would take turns playing 16 bars and go around soloing 16 bars. And it was usually about 3 or 4 of us. Marcus and I were always, there. And I unfortunately always came after Marcus because there were times when we were sitting there witnessing the greatest guitarist that ever lived. And it was simply because he instantly, it became a part of his body and he didn't repeat anything. He put all his emotion into what he was playing, single string technique. And I was transformed doing this. I didn't expect it, didn't notice how it happened, other than just watching him and going, so if I develop that vocabulary right there in my playing, I will transcend myself to a point where I got just a bass and drums behind me, a spotlight, because I had to have that. And I cannot think. I can literally shut off, know what key I'm in, but every freaking note was perfect. And I'm trying to be modest here, but there were times there where I was just like, I could put out every emotion I was feeling, and then I could literally entertain with laughter, sadness, screaming, crying. Every emotion that you could think of was available instantaneously, thanks to Marcus Demmel. And when you guys see him play, his band's called the Blue Poets, I think.
How do you spell his name again? Diml?
Deml.
Deml.
Yeah, and he's very renowned in Europe. Very well known, specifically in Germany. He's one of the best players ever.
The first thing I think of when I think of someone from Germany is I think of like Michael Schenker, right?
Yep.
Is it the
water?
Is it the water? Is it the European music? You know, they're exposed to maybe different kinds of music than we are here in the States.
Yeah.
that's just an interesting thing.
I kind of liken it back to the great composers because, again, most of them were from that area. You know, these guys that were beyond anybody that ever will be was the great composers. Right. And they played what they call modally rather than just your standard minor pentatonic scale, which, you know, is about all Ronnie ever did.
Right.
But
totally.
Boy, could he make that freaking thing work. Marcus, on the other hand, was like, but you have to go into the mixolydian mode.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially over the dominant keys. You have to dominate the key with the mixolydian. Yeah. And then there's the Lydian flat 9. And then he'd start getting really technical. And it's like, not only do you play without thinking, you know what you're doing. And it's just like, what a jerk. But in fact, we've stayed in touch. I haven't seen him since 1989, 87. Wow. But we've stayed in touch, and it's magical in that way that we still pat each other on the back, you know, and he's still doing it. So yeah, definitely check out Marcus.
Yeah, tell me how you got, you know, what was your interest up until the time you went to Musicians Institute? I mean, what was your musical background like? What we want to hear the story.
Well, I started when I was 13 because I had a great junior high school teacher, music teacher, who actually would put rock bands together at the junior high school that we went to. And we would play, you know, for the school at assemblies or whatever. You get that feel of actually being on stage and performing for a big audience. That lit the fire in me. We were, of course, terrible, but you know, that wasn't the point. The fact was that the girls were looking at us, and that was like, okay, I'm all in on this. Mm-hmm. And so I met a friend in high school. When I went into high school, Christian Taylor is still a colleague of mine, and we hit it off and just decided, let's throw together a band that can actually go out and do 4-set nights. By the time I was a junior in high school, I had a band that was playing nightclubs, 4 sets a night, all up and down the state of California. Mm. So dropped out of school, took the test and dropped out. I don't want to say dropped out. I took the test, got out of school because I was out actually making a living playing music. Problem was I didn't know what I was doing. Right. I mean, we were like, okay, well, we know how to play this song. And look, they're dancing. We're in there. Okay. And it was top 40. And there wasn't a lot of thrill to that type of playing. And again, it was fun because we played places that had a lot of fun people. But boy, it was kind of like the Beatles in that way, where we worked our tails off and developed our skills. But again, what happened was I got to the level of playing where I'm playing with these people, and they started talking to me. And I'm like, yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what that means. No, I don't know what that means. So going to MI filled in the blanks theoretically for me, so that now I can understand what people are saying when they're talking to me, and I can verbalize back just the musical vocabulary. So that's what got me to that point. And then, of course, there was just intensive play every day. You know, sometimes 10 hours a day. I would log sometimes that.
So I went so far in 1987, I sent to, Guitar Player Institute, the little thing where you could have them send you an info packet, right? They send me the info packet. I remember looking over this little quiz thing where they're asking you to, how would you play a G major 7? It's just kind of a basic thing. And of course I didn't know, I didn't know the answers to that. And I just I didn't have money, but that was one of my dreams, was going to the Guitar Institute. I just thought that would have been so awesome.
Oh, and in 1987, just imagine, man, I was like, it was crazy at that time.
Yeah.
Of course, Guns N' Roses was everywhere, and you just couldn't get away from them,
So at the time, the Sunset Strip was quite a deal, and you're pretty close to that in Hollywood. Would that kind of spill over both directions from guitar?
Oh boy. Okay, wait a minute. So your question is, Was I close to the scene on Sunset? And had I witnessed it and been a part of it? Yes and yes and yes.
I guess my question is, when you walk through the halls of Musician Institute, was there a lot of hairspray and spandex?
Yes. Well, not spandex, but a lot of hair. And believe me, the Tedescos and the Joe Giordano, Jeff Berlin, all these just are all kind of looking out the door going,
what? Yeah.
What's with the poodle heads?
Yeah.
So they call them the poodle heads. And, I was kind of one of those too. But it was great. I mean, I tempered my look. So they actually used me in the catalog. You too could do this. And so I wasn't too overboard. Plus, I could back up any kind of egomaniacal look I ever came up with. And it's like, you can look the part, great. But if you can't back it up, and you can talk the talk too, but if you can't back it up, then you're a jerk, So who of your tenure, of your class, when you were there, were there any of your alumni that went on to be successful? Like, when was Paul Gilbert there? Was he before you? He was before me, but he was there as an interim teacher.
Gotcha.
He would actually come in and give instruction, private instruction, personal instruction. It was just like you'd walk down the halls and hear him in a room and go, that can't be possible. That can't be possible. What is going on? No, that cannot be possible. Nobody can play that fast. And of course, once you get your look around the room, your look, and it's the fact is that he could make tapping sound like he was picking.
Interesting.
And so usually you would know what tapping sound when somebody's tapping. Eddie certainly made it clear, I am now tapping, right? Gilbert tapped so hard that you couldn't tell he was actually tapping. Thus, it made sound like his picking technique was great too. Yeah. And again, what a sweet guy. Totally down to earth. Nice fella.
He seems like a really down to earth.
Yeah. Paul is amazing.
I really like him. So,
yes, he would be the guy, because otherwise really nobody, except me.
But there are, okay. So there's a guy on YouTube, John, and I mean this, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but he's a nerd that, no, not you. You're not.
I'm a nerd, though. I'm a geek nerd. Proud of it.
Guy, Andrew Wasson, do you see the Creative Guitar Studio or whatever? You ever watched his videos, John?
I haven't stumbled across
He does not look like a guitar player. He looks like a science teacher, right? He's a GIT grad. And so I'm just, I think a lot of times we think that everyone that went to GIT was a metalhead, but that's not the case.
Oh, no.
There are lots of jazzers and
that's how it was established. It was established more as a sophisticated jazz type bebop players that could play over changes. You're just like, what is that? And then of course there's the Marcus demo, and it's just like, okay, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And we all you had to do is make friends with them.
That is awesome.
And away you go.
I'll check him out. So here's what I want to do, Pat. We're going to take a short break, our short word from our sponsor. And then when I come back, I want to talk about Ronnie Montrose. And then I want to talk more about your YouTube channel, too.
Great.
So let's take this short commercial break, and then we'll be right back.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against #1 contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
The basement can be a lonely place.
Hello? Hello? Is anyone anyone in here?
Yet, at the Classic Guitar Rock podcast, the basement is all that Jeremy and John have. Their wives don't want them geeking out on classic rock in the living room. Can you blame them? But you can help. For as little as $3 a month, you can become a supporter on Patreon. Join today and end the cycle. Visit patreon.com/classic guitar rock. They'll still be in the basement, but at least it's not your basement.
Hello? Is anyone in here?
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Jeremy Lunnan on the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
We only have sponsors for very important messages.
Well, I endorse that commercial. You guys are great. No, I became an instant fan since I heard you.
So let me. I just have to throw this out here, and I'm gonna also throw John's lovely wife Cheryl under the bus. So when John came on to the podcast, you've heard at the beginning of this is why Pat and I just are kindred spirits when it comes to the old TV shows and stuff. I love like montages of clips from old TV shows and stuff. And Cheryl's absolutely right, actually. But Cheryl listened to this episode and she's like, man, that part at the beginning, that was really long because it was a long montage of, I don't remember which one it was. I just do themes. I'll grab like the Johnny Quest theme, and then I just start putting together audio drops from TV shows that I grew up with. And that's why it's a Gen X thing. Yeah, our topic is classic rock, but I just try and tie in all the things I thought was cool when I was a kid. And Cheryl thought it was too long. So I hope people don't think it's too long. And if they do, too bad. Right. But I just love that. I love the little audio drops of different shows. So
my wife is a high school teacher, and she taught drama for years, and she has no time to stroke egos. So she lets you know, like, it's not working. Do something different. And I told John, I said, well, here's the deal, man. My target audience is other guys in their 50s like me. And I think most of us probably grew up watching reruns, right? We probably all watched Banana Splits. Sid and Marty Krofft. Yeah.
We watched Gilligan's Island. We watched Smokey and the Bandit. So in my mind, I'm just relating to my audience. And Cheryl hurt my feels, John. So that was the main. I'm just joking.
I would say that she feels bad about it, but I know she doesn't.
So, all right. So, Pat, tell us about Ronnie Montrose. How did he become aware of you because you were at GIT, or how did this all come about?
No. Okay. It's really complex, in a weird kind of way, because I've learned things posthumously about how he became aware of me and why he had a connection to Santa Cruz and all of these things that were very curious. But Santa Cruz had a really popular rock club that all national acts would pass through. It was called the Catalyst. And during the time right after I came back from GIT, I had a trio. It was the Pat McCormack group, and it was instrumental. And I basically got first call on every big rock act that came through as an opener. And that did a lot for me. I mean, a lot of names. David Lee Roth, Foreigner, Rory Gallagher, The Tubes, Blue Oyster Cult. Oh, God, the list goes on and on and on of who I was able to open for there. And, of course, Ronnie Montrose and Gamma. So I had a particularly good night opening for Ronnie one time in about, I guess it was probably 1990. A really good night. it was that moment, like I was telling you, John, that where I didn't think, but the spotlight really helped me not think. It was just like, this is it. This is my home. I'm at home. And the audience really responded. So I was just stoked on that. But then the sound man comes over and goes, Pat, after I'm done, goes, Ronnie wants to meet you. And I'm all in, man, because he was one of my biggest influences. Okay. And he took me up to the backstage and said, Pat, Ronnie, and he goes, hey, so how long have you been playing? And I, smart ass, go, what time is it? And he looks at me and goes, sense of humor, huh? What's your number? I gave him my number, and I was like, okay, that's promising. Then during that time, I had moved back to L.A. Since hearing till I heard from him, I had moved back to L.A. To try to get a touring gig, and came close a few times. Actually came really close. And that's this moment when I got kicked off the tour because I was a Scorpio. Thank you, Cher. The phone rings and it's Ronnie Montrose. And I think it's a joke, of course, because it's like, how did you get my number down here, which is a different number from the one I gave you? And anyway, he tracked me down through the Catalyst. The club owner of the Catalyst knew me well. And anyway, it's like, hey, you want to be in my band? Yes. And great. Well, you got to come back to the Bay Area. And I went, oh, darn. That's where I grew up. That's where my folks live. Okay, no problem. So that worked out really well. And we played on and off together for about 4 or 5 years after that.
So this is in the 90s. This is like the early to mid 90s. Okay.
The early 90s, yeah.
And you played, I'm assuming you played live. You're not on any albums with him. You didn't tour with him. So you toured with him. Mm-hmm. You're playing Montrose stuff. You're playing Gamma stuff. You're doing the whole catalog.
Yeah, we didn't do Gamma. Something really strange about that was that Gamma got back together for the first time. It was the reunion of Gamma at that time. And of course, they were still had a lot of vitality. Both him and Davey had a lot of vitality. So they put together a 7-show tour, and I got to be the opener.
Nice.
And that's how I became really close with Davey. I mean, Gamma, all through high school, they were stuck in my 8-track player and got me through breakups and all of this. And it was just like, you don't know how much I love you guys. And just the fact that and then of course, having played with Ronnie, it's just like, this is kind of a pinch me thing because he truly was a legend. And the amount of stuff that he did, it was just phenomenal.
I really think, and I'd be interested to hear your opinion, that first Montrose album is about 10 years ahead of its time.
Yeah.
It is just, it came out in 73, and you listen to this album and you compare it to another album from 73, compare it to a BTO, and I have nothing against BTO. I like BTO, but that Montrose album, the guitar sound, everything about it just kicks the crap out of anything else from 1973.
And it was produced by a guy from my hometown,
Ted Templeman
from Santa Cruz.
Yes.
And okay. You know what he went on to do? Correct?
Exactly. Van Halen, the Doobie Brothers.
They all just read his book, by the way, Platinum Producer. Oh my gosh. And the fact that he's talking about stuff going on right down the street from where I live now just floored me because I had no idea he lived here or grew up here for that matter. Wow. So, definitely ahead of its time.
Yeah. And you got to think in context, right? So 73, it's a shame that they didn't get the commercial notoriety because, again, I'm biased because I love Montrose, but they're every bit as influential to me, I think, as Deep Purple was, as Black Sabbath was, and they were, some people called them the first American heavy metal band. I don't know, whatever, but Space Station Number 5.
Yeah.
That is
awesome.
The coolest song maybe ever. Seriously. And Sammy Hagar's no slouch either, of course. but he should get so much more attention than he does.
Make no mistake, the legacy he left is indelible. Mm-hmm. He is known. He got out of self-sabotage, maybe not as far as he could have gone. But when I was with him, we actually started working in first album songs, and I could not have been happier about that. Problem was, we didn't have a singer. And he looks at me and goes, "Hey, Pat, you want to sing Rock Candy and Rock the Nation?"
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And so, oh man, did I work on those. Good Rockin' Tonight. Oh my God. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And boy, oh boy, we would close the show with Rock the Nation and Rock Candy. And I'd get the whole audience yelling Hard, Sweet, and Sticky back at me. It was, boy, some of the best memories I've ever had.
So, okay, there's a video, and you might know, do you know Mark Bonilla?
Of course.
Okay, so I think even in the Robin Trower episode, which I think you listened to, I'm talking about that Montrose tribute show, and Mark Bonilla is playing the Gamma set.
Yeah, Jeremy, let me address that.
Yeah,
I heard you talking about it, and it sounded eerily like Ronnie's memorial concert, which was done up in the city. It wasn't long after he passed away. Mm-hmm. Sammy put together this all-stars come together to remember Ronnie show. And I went with Ronnie's ex-wife, as a matter of fact.
Really?
And it was so bizarre because it was high budget, freaking full on camera crews, booms and everything.
Yeah. It's a total pro shoot.
Sold out.
Yeah.
Sold out. And Neil Sean starts with Town Without Pity. And when I heard you describing it, I went, that sounds like the memorial concert, and then Sammy came out and they did all the Montrose songs with Satriani playing. And it was really weird. It was really weird because the audience wasn't there to remember Ronnie. They were there just to rock out.
Right.
And it was really bizarre in that way because it just wasn't like there was no somberness to it until Gamma came on. And Davey brought it down to earth and just said, "Hey," and he looked up, and then they did that set and Mark nailed it. I mean, it was phenomenal. They blew everybody away, in my opinion. And I hadn't talked to Davey at that point in 20 years. And we didn't connect until I found him at a rock club in San Jose here. It was just like, we didn't skip a beat. It was as though we'd never parted. We'd lost touch with each other. But now we're in touch with each other all the time.
Awesome. And Davey Caddison, he's one of to me, he's Paul Rogers. He should be as big as Paul Rogers.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal.
Yes. An all-time great. I feel so honored that we have that friendship and that what he thinks of me, which is just like, are you talking about me?
Yeah.
And he's like, one of the best? What?
That's
me?
Awesome. Yeah.
Oh, come on, Davey.
That is awesome.
Again, he caught me. Okay. He caught me at the right time.
So you and Davey need to do an album. Get together.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Do an album.
It was this close. It was this close. I mean,
really?
The Golden Age of TV was a live performance. I had all the backing tracks and I came out and did all the main lines instrumentally. And I opened for Gamma like 3 times when they put it back together. This was 5-6 years ago when he was in the Bay Area still. So he's since moved back to Scotland, but we reconnected and it was like, boy, if any time that other guitar player just decides he doesn't want to do this anymore, I know where I'm going to be.
That's awesome.
And so, I mean, no, I never got to play Gamma songs. I take that back. I sat in with him one time at a club. We did the Voyager.
Nice.
And it was like,
you can only do one Gamma song. That's probably the one you do.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just this has got to be early 2000s. There, you've probably seen it. There's a YouTube video and it says it's a Montrose concert. It's only like 15 minutes long. It's Ronnie and a band they do Voyager. They do maybe Rock the Nation, maybe Space. There's like 4 songs. Drummer looks like William Shatner. Singer looks like Nicolas Cage. But it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. I don't know who these guys are. And that's the thing about Ronnie is you see him every time you see him, he's playing with different people, right?
Yeah. He would share. And he was really generous with me. He shared the spotlight with me like crazy. And he did that for other players, many other players that he'd see up and comers and just say, hey, come work with me. I felt special because I stuck with it for 5 years. So it's like, I make it 5 years. These other guys were only doing like 1, if even that. But, again, he just liked to mix it up. He really loved to mix it up. So while I was with him, I played with 3 different bass players and 3 different drummers. And so that was the way it worked. He would just mix it up. I don't know why he did that other than just, he got bored easy. I didn't bore him. Obviously, I didn't bore him soon enough. But
so was he easy to work with, or was he kind of mercurial? Is that the word? Was he kind of difficult to work with?
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
He was at times easy to work with.
Yeah.
And most of the time, wonderful to work with. Mm-hmm. But he had this sense of humor that was his and his alone, mm-hmm. which quite often you would be the one that would have to pay the toll for.
You were on the receiving end. Yeah,
exactly. And I just recall one gig as an example where we were finishing with Town Without Pity, and I decided I'd throw a little chord thing behind his opening soloing thing. Mm-hmm. And he looked over at me from across the stage with this look. It was this.
Yeah.
Which is part of his normal look, only this meant, Pat, one more note comes out of you, I'm going to come over there and smash that thing over your head. That's basically what it said.
Yeah.
And so I've stopped. I'm freaking out. This is the last song. The drummer thinks he's looking at him. So now he's freaking out. We get off, right? This is the Stone in San Francisco. We get off, sold out. And there comes the encore. Raw meat, raw meat, raw meat. Raw meat. That was our joke because it was always Ronnie. Right?
Yeah.
And we're just standing there freaking out, and he's not saying a word. And he goes and looks up at me, and my drummer goes, "Okay, I want to see Don and Pat after the show. Let's go do that final." We go out and just play this. We get through. Oh, this is going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. I get done. I don't even shut my amp off. I just unplug the guitar. And of course, you know what happens then. And he goes, as we're walking off, somebody shut that goddamn amp off. It's like, oh man, we're in so much trouble. We get done. We go in the backstage. He walks over and goes, "Good show, guys." Yeah. Okay, so that was the thing. I mean, you never knew what you were going to get. And a good portion of the time, it was a joke at your expense. Mm. And in that way, he was endearing. I actually loved some of the things that he did like that. But that was definitely one of the ones I remember the most. Yeah, he liked to stir it up. He'd like throw a bomb in the room and walk away and just see what happens. Did
he let you solo?
Oh yeah,
a lot. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I mean, again, it was like, I don't have to, Ronnie. You got plenty of other guitar stuff going on here, and none of it was easy.
Right.
None of it, because it was his instrumental music. And so very sophisticated stuff. I felt fine just doing that. But then he'd be like, "Okay, Pat, you take one on this part. And then you take one on that song." And so maybe every second or third song, he'd let me solo. And then, of course, he let me sing too, which was just like, that's awesome.
That's really cool. So, Pat, can you give us a little background on like the equipment you were using, that kind of stuff? Because I'm pretty comfortable with home stuff, but when you're playing for these really big commercial paid gigs, what's your instrumentation? What kind of gear you got?
Well, you know what? I had a really good system. Have you heard of the Bradshaw? Bob Bradshaw.
Oh, the covers or the big full page ad in Guitar Player magazine. He had that's like glasses and this really long mullet.
Yeah.
And he was holding this thing.
Yeah. And Bob was great. And he put together a system for me. And I called it the mailbox because it kind of looked about the size of a mailbox, but it had my amps mounted. And it was strange because it was the era of Randall amps, solid state.
Randall.
And when I brought him in to Bob to install, he looked at me like I was crazy. What did you bring these solid state pieces of crap in here for? I said, Bob, just do it. I've been playing these for years. Just put them in there for me, because he had to take them out of the chassis and mount them into the. And so I come to pick it up, and he looks at me and goes, those Randalls actually sound pretty good. And that was it. It was the era. It was whoever was working the electronics at that time made those things phenomenal. Circa 1980, 85 Randall RG100s.
Yeah. Didn't they? Instead, they didn't have grill cloth on the cabinets. They had like expanded metal, like cage on it.
Well, it was a wannabe. It was a wannabe Marshall. So it literally looked like a Marshall head, but it said Randall instead. And again, what I had him do is I had him pull, because all it really was this big. It was this big. It wasn't the full. There was nothing in it. It just looked like it, And so that was my sound. The first rehearsal I went to with Ronnie, had not met him and talked to him. And I mean, other than that gig, I had not talked. I take it back. We learned music on the phone. He taught me what he wanted me to do over the phone, or, about a month up until. So yes, we knew each other quite well, but we hadn't actually hung together. I got there early. I brought my stuff in and set it all up. And nobody was there, so I went out and got a sandwich. I come back, everybody's there. The funny thing is, everybody who was people I don't even know, are all standing around my Bradshaw pedal board, my really expensive Bradshaw pedal board. And I see smoke coming up. And it's not even on. And it's like, okay, these guys are trying to figure out, should we put it out or should we just let it burn? I don't know what the hell they're doing. But it was the crew. And the bass player, maybe at that moment, that's all I saw there. And as I walk up, they're standing around Ronnie, who's sitting on the floor with my Dunlap Crybaby torn apart with a soldering gun. And he's working it. And he looks at me and goes, I'm fixing it for you. And I was like, what do you mean? It works fine. He goes, no, you don't understand. All your sound goes through this damn thing. So even when you're not using it, it's diminishing your tone.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're creating a transfer straight through, so that when you shut off, this is what this does. He put in a whole new pot for me, soldered it for me, got it ready. He did it for me. And I was like, wow.
That's awesome.
This is going to be great.
and that is so true about those old wah pedals, is if it was in line, it sapped your tone big time.
Right.
He's basically making it a true pass. Yeah.
That was it. That was it.
That's awesome. That is phenomenal. So, and I don't want to dwell on the negative parts, but Ronnie had some struggles, physical, emotional, Did you keep in touch much after you were done playing with him?
Yes. Well, not as much as I would have liked to. It would probably be, every couple months. And then he came to my wedding, which was great. Then maybe every 6 months. Then, how friendships kind of fall. And he floundered. He was married. That broke up. He moved to another woman. That broke up. Then he was living in a garage, and that was wrong. And next, it's just like stuff I didn't really want to know, because that was not the man that I played with. The Ronnie that I played with had it together and expected us to as well. And as a matter of fact, sure, whatever happened to him towards the end, he had health problems. And unfortunately, he started drinking a lot. I never saw that. We'd have a shot of Remy Martin right before we went on stage. That was it. Boy, did that work well, too, I might add. But that said, it was never any excess. I never saw excess out of him. As a matter of fact, he'd smoke a little weed, but that,
yeah.
So did we.
And everything I've seen, interviews, even the last, and when I say, you don't really see anything after about 2010, 2009. He's always seems great. There's one Q&A thing I watch where he's like, hey, I'll talk about anything. If you want to ask me about barbecue, I like to if you want to ask about raising kids, so he was anything was open. He's very open.
Very intelligent man.
And
no
just
doubt
seems
about it.
like such a normal, down to earth, none of the trappings,
right?
Of a rock star.
It made no sense. I mean, it did make sense because I knew he was dealing with the prostate cancer, and he was actually going to play on my solo album. He said, "Yes, I will do it, and for free." And I was like, "Right on, man! The only one is one song that you can solo on, please." And at that point, he started spiraling, and we lost touch. And it got to the point where a friend of mine was still working for him, and he said it got bad. I mean, he was holding the guitar cord to keep him from falling off the stage at certain points. And I was just like, that's not the man I knew.
Right.
That is not. And so he just had a lot of poor turns. And I had no idea about the emotional problems. I mean, don't we all?
Yeah.
But I guess his were pretty deep seated. And, I could see a little bit of maniac in him. But that's where the genius came from, I would assume. You listen to the Open Fire album, what you hear on that is a genius at work. And it's all instrumental. And I miss him immensely.
He wasn't a trained musician, right? He just learned to play, and he just ripped. But his sound, so much of what he did in 1973 just became the staple of what everyone else would do late. Eddie Van Halen was hugely influenced.
Totally.
By Ronnie. And I'm pretty sure if you go back to those, I can't remember the radio station where they played the live broadcast of Ronnie's band before it was called Montrose. They play it. The station I'm talking about? It's in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Play these live shows, and you can hear them playing the songs that would be on the first Montrose album that Sammy and him had written.
Right.
And you would know he's doing some tapping on that in 1973.
Yeah.
This is pre Van Halen, and I'm pretty sure he's doing some tapping.
I'd never seen him. I'd never seen it. And he never incorporated that I saw. Yeah. He was all about picking it, man.
And maybe I'm wrong, but because I remember one of the old tales is that Eddie got pissed off because he saw Ronnie tapping once or something. And he thought I don't know if that's true, but I'm pretty sure I'll find it, Pat, and I'm going to send it to you. There's a part on that recording where, to me, it sounds like Ronnie is tapping, and this is like in 1972.
It could very well be. You're probably talking about KSJO, which was the rock station, and it just brought up just a great memory. Thank you, Jeremy. We were playing at a club in Santa Clara, and so we went in for the morning show interview with Lamont and Tonelli, and it was a big listenership. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands, just being goofy, talking about our gig. And hey, Ronnie, I guess there's a guitar over there. They hid an electric guitar so that they could throw it at him to kind of
play
to play something, right? And he goes, "Oh, all right. Play something, Pat."
Yeah.
He hands it to me, and I'm like, okay. Sure, I will. And I did, man. I was like, you're going to challenge me like that, pal. I'm going to follow through. Talk about awkward. Look, awesome. I figured out what to play. I was like, what am I going to play? Oh my God. That was his sense of humor. He's like, that's cool. Play something.
John, so think about this. This is back in the 70s. It's probably a later time that you're talking about, but there was a station that played live in studio concerts like on a Tuesday morning.
Right.
So they'd have someone come in and play a 40-minute set live.
Yeah.
That's awesome. They would never do that anymore.
Never happen ever again.
We lived in the best days of rock. I'm so blessed. I do. I mean, I feel so blessed to have had that time.
And a common refrain we talk about on the show, and Ronnie is one of these guys, is mortality, right? Is these rock icons. We lost Eddie Van Halen. We lost Neil Peart. All these famous people, everyone but Keith Richards will die eventually, right? And that's sad. Yeah. That's sad. Hey, there's a great question here from Black Hat Music. Thank you for joining us from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I grew up in Oklahoma.
Oh, I didn't even see the comments. I'm going to go to the comments.
I'm sharing them as they come through. Are you seeing the comments, John?
Yeah.
I'm trying to share them as I come through. So, what music did Ronnie listen to casually? What did Ronnie like to listen to?
I have no idea. The funny thing is we would be at a diner or something, and all of a sudden Van Morrison Wild Nights would come on, and I'd be like, and I remember I jokingly didn't joke. I said, boy, I used to play that in a cover band, not knowing, right? And he looks at me and goes, yeah, that's me. They would do that kind of stuff. It would just be like, and so, the guy made so much music. He was very much like me. Mm-hmm. I didn't listen to a lot of it because I was making so much of it that I was burned out on it, or not burned out on what I was doing. But when you're in that creative place and you've been a pioneer trailblazer, you're not really needing to draw off anybody.
Right.
So I'm sure he did some probably had, easy, cool jazz going on while he was barbecuing, guitar music. He probably could have taken or left because, he was saturated in that. So symphonic music, I don't know. I really don't.
That's great. Let me ask a few questions about your channel. You have how many total, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but how many total videos do you think you've done about the various TV shows?
Hundreds.
So a lot.
Yeah.
So,
probably about, I'm guessing about 250 maybe.
So what are your personal favorites, like reruns? We talk about the syndicated shows that I grew up watching after school or whatever. What are your all-time favorites? What are the ones that you really like?
Well, I was way into the sci-fi. Star Trek got it all started for me. Because I was burned out for whatever reason, I don't know what, and suddenly Shore Leave is on, and it's the one where anything they think actually happens, and unfortunately, they're not in control of what they're thinking, and I was just like, this is what for me. Then I discovered The Outer Limits, got way into that show because it was one of the best. I liked, a lot of the sitcoms. So, it's funny. You guys mentioned Sid and Marty Krofft a little earlier. Tomorrow, I'm actually doing a live stream myself, interviewing the producer of the Sid and Marty Krofft convention, first ever, that's happening in May. And the cats from Land of the Lost, who I'm friends with, are going to be there. It's Kathy and Wesley, and Butch Patrick's going to be there.
Wow.
Johnny Whitaker.
Whitaker, I've met him.
He's going to be there. And they were all
he was on Sigmund and the Sea Monster.
Yeah. Yeah. Butch Patrick was Lidsville.
Lidsville.
And Johnny Whitaker was Family Affair.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. And I'm very good friends with Kathy Garver too, who played Sissy on that show. So it's one of the things that from doing what I do, it's caught the attention of some of these classic stars because I would do things for them. I would review their books. I would promote their websites. I would say, and one of the greatest was Jerry Mathers. Jerry Mathers reaching out to me and telling me how much he appreciates me. And I'm just like, what?
That's awesome.
What? And next thing I know, he's like, what's your address? And he's sending me autographed pictures. He sends me his new Christmas stuff that he comes up with every year. And we met like in a photo op thing. But now with what I do, he sees, according to him, the quality of it, and we're apparently going to be close friends. I'm like,
that's awesome. No,
with the Dave.
And it is, you know what? The quality is great. I mean, that's what I love about your channel. The graphics, it's really well done. And you, I know your channel hasn't been around that long, and you know this, but YouTube is a long game, right? It's a long game, and all of a sudden, one of those videos, you might already have some that have done it, but you'll get one of those that goes viral, and you'll explode. I know that channel is going to just explode. Huge.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, it's maddening. YouTube is maddening because it's all about the algorithms, not necessarily the quality. Exactly. Then it's the length, and it's all this and that, and how much playthrough and follow through and blah, 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 blah. And it just is like, you know, I have a friend. His name's Dave Sundstrom, who's a creator of nostalgic retro type stuff that I do. And we become friends via, he said just that one video, 125,000 subscribers. Not just views, but subscribers, which is where the money's at. And so he literally gets paid from YouTube. Yeah. Now I've had that channel open for about 5 years, way too long for not having the recognition that Dave says it should have. Yeah. So everybody head over to Golden Ranger TV.
And I'm not just saying that because you're a guest here. It's a really good channel and really entertaining. And I don't know why you don't have 300,000 subscribers.
That's the anomaly, you know. And of course, so he's a guitar player. He's a rock guitar player. Is that what he is? And then, now he's not doing that anymore. And I couldn't because I damaged my ears over the years so badly that I can only handle nylon strings right now as it is. Wow. No complaints. You know, headphones are really dangerous, fellow recording guitar players out there.
Headphones,
Be very careful of your headphones. Do not wear them for extended periods. Do not play them too loud. Also, hearing protection. My day, it's monitor wedges up in your face, side fills here, drummers with no baffles, and man, no wonder my hearing's gone, you know? And it's just like, I had friends that say you'd do it all over again, wouldn't you? Right? Yeah, of course. But, you know, it's just things happen. And that's when I decided to just become a talking head like I'm doing right now. Yeah. And saying, hey, greetings, fellow classic TV fans. This show aired from this time to this time. And
it's great.
A couple of fascinating facts without taking forever.
I come from a television background, actually worked in television for a while, and your production values are very good. I'm actually embarrassed about our production values.
Yeah, we have none. But we're okay with that. Yeah.
Well,
we make it up for our personality and our appearance, I think. Don't you think so?
Well, I don't do that all alone. I mentioned my friend Christian Taylor, who I grew up with playing music, and he's become a masterful video editor and photographer. He's one of those guys that anything he does. When we were in the soap opera band together, because we were on General Hospital for we did that band for about 10 years, and that was a great experience. But won an Emmy for Best Original Song. And that was mostly his piece. I got to write the solo, so I was like, I'll take that statue. And they're like, sorry, you only get a plaque. You only get a plaque for the solo. And it's just like, okay, I'll take the plaque. It still says Academy of Television Arts and Sciences on it. I'm like, I won.
Does the bottom of it say your name here? You have to engrave yourself.
Yeah. Well, all right. Yeah. Well, it's like also. I didn't want to pay for the statue, you know, and of course they make you pay for it, even if you want it. It's like, okay, $250, forget it.
Well, Pat, plug your channel. Black Hat Music is saying, what is the name again? It sounds right up my alley. So give us the full name of your YouTube channel. And you guys watching this, make sure you go over and subscribe to.
Yes, please.
It's the golden rage of TV, right?
That's it. And not just
Golden
Rage of TV. And then what you'll see there is different playlists. Mostly, initially, what you'll see is just my talking head talking about classic TV shows. And those quick snippets that run, sometimes they're only 1 minute, sometimes they're 3 minutes. It's just, I'm kind of toying around with different times. But you also see the music playlists. And that's where, with this channel, your followers, go look at that. Because I'm really proud of it.
Check out those. Music Critic just subscribed. So there you go.
Thank you.
Black Hat, you need to make sure you go subscribe too.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
We'll track you down in Tulsa, Black Hat.
I appreciate that very much. Very much.
Make sure to do that. Okay, and he's gonna subscribe too. So, Pat, we want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been a lot of fun.
Totally.
We'll reserve the right to have you back on.
I want to talk to you again. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, again, I never let John talk enough on the show. John's going to splinter off and start his own podcast where he's allowed to talk, I think is one of
that's
a great time.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm a fan of you too.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And we will, by the way, we do this live feed, and then we'll edit this into the actual podcast episode. So it'll get posted up here in the next couple days too. So, and all of you who join the live feed, thank you. If you're watching the recording, thank you. Go out and subscribe to Pat's Golden Rage of TV channel. Follow him on Twitter also.
So and that's at Golden Rage of TV 1. And by the way, folks, don't forget to click the like button on this stream.
Yes.
Don't forget to do that, because that actually does help.
It does help a bunch.
Click the like button.
So
don't
all right.
Hit the like button.
Thank you so much, John, Pat. Been fun. All of you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
Oh, sweetening.
Please like, subscribe, and share. You can email us at classicguitarrock@mail.com.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
We'll see you for the next episode of the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.